All right, it is January the 17th, and we're going to run through some Foursquare. Let's see here. Angela, did you have names in mind? I know we'll start with going over IGPK because I just want to make sure you see it. I know we've talked about it earlier, but let's run through it. Let's see here. All right, Angela, factor of 5. I always start with monthly, then weekly, daily, and of course, hourly. They're all factors of 5. And this information, this strategy, if you will, to be able to look at time frames comes from this wonderful book. You can you see my screen, Angela?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I can see you, not your screen.
You can see me. Okay. Yeah, this book, Trading for a Living. And let me just check real quick. And maybe I can explain basics to you. I'll check the time element one more second. Time. See if it's set. You may not be able to look at this. It's not it says factor of 5. It just talks about the factor of 5 in all time frames. If you start with monthly charts and proceed to weeklies, you will notice that there are 4.5 weeks to a month. As you switch to dailies, you will see there are 5 trading days in a week. And as your time frame narrows, you will look at hourly charts, and they are approximately 5 to 6 hours to a trading day. I don't know if that's 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. It's more like 6.5. Day traders can proceed even further, looking at 10-minute charts, followed by 2-minute charts, et cetera, all factors of 5. Proper way to analyze any market is to analyze it in at least 2 time frames. They should be related by the factor of 5. When you analyze the market in 2 time frames, the shorter of them has to be 5 times shorter than the larger one. If you want to analyze daily charts, you must first examine weekly charts. And if you want to day trade using 10-minute charts, you need to first analyze hourly charts. This is one of the key principles in the triple screen trading system. Anyway, this book, Trading for a Living, for those of you guys that are watching this later, I've had this book for quite some time. Angela, I think I shared this with you some time ago, and this will be for people who see it later, at a later date. And what we're looking at again is when I started this whole stock market journey, this is in 2006. I wanted to do $2,000 and grow my balance every single month. And you can see 2007, of course, this is inverted, 2008 and 2009. So I had that particular goal, and that it did not work out. And that was in 2006. And then 2016, 10 years later, still trying to get it done. Here's March, $4,848. And every 2 weeks, I wanted to grow my income throughout the 2016 calendar year, and had some successes and some failures, and just never still trying to get it together until 2020 hit. And I was able to get my head out of my butt, get more serious, be more focused, have more discipline, show some maturity, get a trading strategy, have my goals set. We were able to take a little bit of money and turn it into a lot of money. And so this process of learning and having goals and trying to achieve an objective has been with me for quite some time. And it should never take you more than it shouldn't have taken me 17 years to get here. Had I had a coach, had I been more serious about my own money, I could have gotten this done a long time ago. And so don't beat yourself up ever, Angela, or anybody else watching this later. Just listen to what I'm telling you. It just takes some reps. And so let's dive into the first one. Let's see if I can see. Lot to learn. You're not going to learn it all in one setting. Just don't be, it just takes time. So let's see here. What was the symbol? IGPK. So stock in all time frames. Start with the monthly, weekly, daily, 1 hour, factor of 5. Here we go. Angela.
Yes.
Here's the first thing I would say. None of this matters to me anymore other than the breakout, because IGPK is being acquired, reverse merger, call it whatever you want to call it. Another company is taking over all of it. So this particular downward trend line on the monthly, it's not that relevant to me. The situation only became relevant when IGPK, when the news started to hit about what was going on with the company. They put a bunch of stuff out on Twitter and in various places. But, had you been looking at this, then clearly the breakout was right around 0014. What do we need? 5% above the 0014 with good volume. Both of those criteria was met on the monthly side. So had you just looked at the monthly chart and you saw we were, 0014 roughly times 105%, that can't be it, 0014 times 105%. Yeah, 00147. When it hit that with good volume, obviously we ideally closing the time frame, closing out the month with at least that with good volume, you would have been a buyer. So obviously you're not going to be buying typically based on the month, but it's your bigger picture guideline to what is going on overall with the stock. But again, because it's a reverse merger, all of this doesn't matter to me unless I was buying this and the news hit here and then it was a little bit more relevant to me. So weekly, the news on this scenario, I don't think started to trickle out until October that something was coming, a reverse merger. So I think it was maybe mid-October, but we'll still look at the weekly. Here's our breakout on the weekly. The first line obviously is our monthly and
Are
our
you
week.
wanting this on the screen, Eugene?
Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't learn if you can't see. Let's see here. There we go. So again, the monthly doesn't mean as much to me. For those of you, again, looking and watching later, is because of the reverse merger. But clearly the stock, if it was meaningful, is in a downtrend. And if it broke the 147 mark, which was 5% above this 012, with good volume, that has at least given us an indication that the downtrend has been broken. This resistance line has been broken and a new trend is beginning. So on the weekly, there's a bit of a downtrend, not a big one though. It's more of a channel, I'd say, that goes across roughly to here. And obviously the bottom is here. So I would take my cues mainly from the channel and I'll make this bigger. So the stock was in a channel. Here's your resistance on the top side, bottom side support, and it just was doing this for weeks. Nothing was really going on with this cannabis stock, the old company. But then when we had this breakout right here, see, the breakout didn't happen until the week of the 8th, which was last week, because we're looking at a weekly chart. So again, that 012 holds steady as well. We're breaking through the upward resistance line in the channel. We had good volume. And if you get good at buying the breakout, I don't care where it's breaking out from a channel, from a downward trend, from any sort of breakout. The easiest thing to do is to buy the breakout, but you cannot get trapped in a head fake, which happens to all of us if we don't follow the rule. By if it looks like it's going through, but you don't have the volume, then chances are good it'll peter out and then it'll come right back into the channel or back within the resistance area. So once we had this with good volume or GV, we were off to the races. And if you just bought the breakout and you saw the good volume and you saw some news, you would have made a lot of money in the last 2 weeks. Because if you bought it at, no need for me to go through the drill, but if you bought it about 0015, you almost made certainly 4 times your money in about 2.5 weeks, 1.5 weeks, because we're not through this week. So buying the breakout. So now when we look at the daily, and here are our other lines, and I'm going to make this bigger, like so. We see our breakout. We see that we had the good volume. We see that stochastics was giving us a hint right in here, which is a little interesting, right? There, right here. Look at this line right there on whatever date this is. I don't even know. Whatever this date is, because I'm over 2 different lines. With that red candle, it's trying to, stochastics is already turning. Like, hey, something's coming. It's turning up. But the stock hadn't moved yet. But the following day, it started to move up a little bit more. And then here's your real ding, ding, ding. Let me drop this. Let me move this out of the way. Hold on one second. Move that up there. Right here, stochastics is starting to turn down in here. And here's your first ding, ding, ding. And where I mean by the accumulation distribution thing popped up right there on this one. And so right here, if stocks are on your radar and the money's in the homework, you're like, something's going on. Like they're accumulating this. Stochastics is turning, volume starting to peak up a little bit right there. And then the next day, oh, we're right up against the trend line on the daily. And accumulation line is going up. And stochastics is starting to widen away from the purple line. If you'd have bought that one, and then last call for alcohol, it just gave you a quick little pause, but all the things are still in place. Right here, we had a bit of a pullback. Stochastics was pretty high. And then once it broke right there, she was like off to the races. And this is a 3-day run. And then so what do we get right here, Angela, at the top?
And a doji.
We sure did. And even though I said, hey, I'm going to buy it because I didn't want it to run away from me, it started to waffle. And where do we see the waffling? Well, we see it in the hourly chart over here. So when we bought it at 5.3, when the market opened right there, guess what I got the very next hour? A doji. It's staring us in the face. It was already waffling right here. Long wick, body's a little skinnier, not quite sure what it wants to do. We could have taken the 10% right here. And then when we pulled back and closed that time frame, that's why you got to be looking, Angela, say at the hourly. And then the very next time frame, we get this number. You're like, I don't know. This sucker, I don't think it's going to go. And then it gave you maybe a little bit of a glimmer of hope, maybe. But then when you start to get this bearish engulfing, and it's engulfing this before it made its way down. So if I cut this off, not even in half, right here, when this red candle starts to engulf this previous hour, it is time to get out, right? Because you've got a bearish engulfing coming and the stock is going to come down. And you also saw, Angela, just drawing your trend lines. Here was our parabolic up, right?
Yeah.
Right there it was, just lock in step, support, 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 gap up, doji, doji. Here comes the bullish engulfing, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's time to get out. And then when it hit the line, you know it's not going to hold 5-3. It's time to reset it, take the small loss. And then we came down here. And so Angela, so what was support is now,
Resistance.
it sure is. So the very next hour, guess where it can't get past? Make this bigger for you guys looking at home. Let me get rid of this line right here because it's a different time frame. Remove drawing. So now we had the bearish engulfing, and it engulfed 3 hours worth in an hour, right? Engulfs all of this, all of it, all at one time. And it breaks the uptrend line. And then it gives you a last call for alcohol. I apologize. That's just a habit. I don't even really drink. They're telling you, I'll try to come up with a new one, like the train is about ready to leave the station. Are you guys getting on or off? In this case, it's like, this is your last chance to get off because we're going to go down. We're going to hit our head here on the overhead now resistance. We're rounding. Yep, it's time to get out. And then here we go. Down we go. And then we put in what do these two things represent, Angela?
What do you call it? Bottom.
Yes, ma'am. Double bottom, one bottom, two bottom, right?
Mhm.
And looking at this, as this fell, folks, not necessarily coming in to get it because the momentum was just sort of waffling still, but going down here. But volume's coming in, and I need to put histogram over here so that I can get a better idea of if we had a bullish divergence where the stock was going down, but histogram was going up. So let's see here. Add a study. Not a momentum study. There we go. Histogram. So here we double bottomed. Histogram still going down for those of you that are watching this later. Histogram, MACD histogram, moving average, convergence and divergence histogram is a trend following indicator. So if the stock is going down, typically histogram is going down because it's a trend following indicator. However, there are times when the stock is going down, but histogram is going up, which is called a bullish divergence. It's diverging from what you would think it should be doing. And then you can catch the swings when you put it all together. So we had a double bottom in here, and here's our downward trend, on the wide angle view. And then, the one where it's a little bit more pronounced coming downs like this. And then certainly when it really fell, it's kind of like that and there, right? So I'll make that bigger. So we had like 3 trend lines, the fast one down, the one that's a little bit more, and then the one that's a little wider. And so we double bottomed in here. So I started buying at 3.3 and 3.4. And why did I buy at 3.3 and 3.4? Because I could see it on the lower time frame, which I'll show you, that it looked like we were going to hold. Excuse me. So once we double bottomed, I know that resistance is going to be in here, the first line of it, roughly at 3.9. And then the next, I'm sorry, here, this first pronounced one down. And we really didn't doji, but it's a bit of what I call a spinning top, where it's not quite sure what it wants to do, but we're holding the bottom. And then as soon as we broke through this area right in here, that's when it would be more likely that I would buy. So I was also waiting on 35 and 35, and you'll see it on the lower time frames. 35 was the key to go ahead and start buying again. But then also recognizing if you bought the 33, 34, 35, possibly, that you might have to get out at 4 because we might find some resistance in here. And then we got through that resistance and we really needed to spring up, but we did not. Volume was waning. It was also lunchtime. Like I can hover over because I remember it. Yeah, this was lunch and this was the end of lunch. It was 12 o'clock here and 1 o'clock here, this time frame. And volume was just petering out. And I was sitting there watching it on level 2 going, I think I was on the phone with you and I was saying,
Nothing's happening.
you're on the phone. I was on the phone with Greg at the time and I was saying, it might have been you, I don't know, but I was saying, this thing hasn't traded in like 7 minutes.
That was me.
That was you. Okay. And I was like, is something wrong? I was trying to refresh my screen. volume was really drying up. So what did volume drying up mean to me? That for one, selling's probably done. Because if folks were like, the sky is falling, they'd still be selling. And folks that bought it in here, which I don't know how they would still be holding after they made 4.5 times their money in 2 days, but if somehow they're still holding, they're not selling. And so it was a function of, the market makers, because they get paid when they, force trades or get the market going. Are they going to try to move it down? Are they going to move it up? But if no one is on the bid screaming, hey, I want to buy it, and folks are kind of waiting, then you're like, well, I don't know. And then and on the ask, how many people are saying, hey, I want to sell it at this price. So looking at level 2 will help you really learn. You're like, okay, what are we doing? And just kind of look at the numbers and think about the overall scenario. You're like, okay, if you can't quite figure it out, then sometimes you just kind of wait. But then as the stock moved on, guess where it found resistance? On this line right here. Started to roll over, and I didn't know if it was going to roll down. I sold some here, some of these 33s and 34s, but the majority I held because I was like, yeah, I think if it goes down further tomorrow, I'll add. Because if it goes down further tomorrow and starts to retest this 3.2, it's probably going to see 2.7. Then I'll have to really try to add, and then get the hey, the stock is way oversold scenario, and then ride that part of those shares back up. So here's where resistance came in again. So technical indicators and technical lines, they're your friend, and that's why, and candlesticks, they will help you figure out what in the world you should be doing and what you should do. And you just look right there, big giant doji. I'm like, you know what? It's time to get out. And Angela, I need you to look. You've got to look at the stock in all time frames, or you have to call me, because I'll be like, Angela, it's printing a doji. I'm getting out. I'm sorry I didn't call you because I'm not thinking about what everybody else is doing.
Right.
But if it's staring you in the face, Angela, you know that, man. If you don't know any other candlestick name, you know this one. Yeah, it's a doji, and you already know what it means. So, and then, so the lines are your friend, and it's only thing you do is just draw them. You're like, you can see, Angela, where they are. Clearly, this is doing this thing. And then I can marry, and then we were in a bit of this channel right here for 4 hours, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we had more of a pronounced little drop, and then we really dropped. So kind of drawing these will help you, like, okay, we double bottom. We're going to make the turn from this pronounced drop, or are we going to drop one more time? No, we made the turn. Oh, we might hit our head here. Got through that. Ooh, the volume. Just keep thinking through all of the moving parts. Volume is shrinking. Because what do we always need when we break resistance?
Volume.
We need volume. And we did not have it. It was, and in that moment, Angela, I wasn't even dialed in. Probably subconsciously I was dialed in, but not really fully appreciating that we did not have the volume. Because in that moment, I could have said, I think I'm going to sell a few more shares right here because we don't have the volume. Although I was looking at trying to figure out why we didn't have the volume, but I didn't fully make the connection as well as I needed to.
But I have
Go
a
ahead.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading somewhere and I don't remember, but it made the point that when a stock is holding, when there's not much volume, there's not much going on, is that a positive sign that it's going to hold, or is that a sign of what's to come, that it's going to go down? Because the way I was reading it, that was a good sign that it was holding at 40, 0040, pretty, it was in that, going between 0039
Right.
0040. It would be a good sign because it was holding it, even though not much was going on, it was still holding that.
Right. And I think it's all context, if that's the right word, in a stock scenario. It's all, what is it that you're looking at? Like the 3-day run up, the pullback, putting things in perspective. Okay, profit taking, that's natural, but it is holding the 4, and the volume is shrinking, and it's telling you not a bunch of people are selling. Because if they really wanted to get out, it seems like it would keep falling. but it
Mhm.
held in there well enough around that 4. And then we made, well, we already made the turn from the 3s, and then we kind of held in there. So now we're in this bit of a channel, right? We're just doing this. We did this number. So my
Mhm.
next thing in my brain, Angela, is it needs to break here. And I already have alerts there. It needs to get through this channel, bit of a channel, right? It's more of a, one could argue it's a bit of a cup and a kick out, but it needs to kick out up here to really kind of where I'd put my finger as far as a cup and handle. Needs to get through this congestion. And so to see it better on a lower time frame, we'll go whatever, 30 and 15. That's not a factor of 5, but we're just going to look at 30 and 15. So we know we broke certainly the uptrend, and then the more of the parabolic one, which we already discussed, where the candle went through. And then we had this kick out, and then we had a wider one, and we went through that one again with a long red candle. And then we double bottom down in here, and then we kicked up, and we haven't made it through. And then towards the end of the day, the close, the last 30 minutes, I wasn't sure if it was going to hang in there. And then towards the end of it, they brought it back up to close at 39. So my point was about the lower time frame, figuring out, were we going to hold in here? We made this higher low, like say you can't see all of this. Just say you can't see it all. So in the moment when we were coming down, it made a bit of a doji here, like I'm not sure it wants to come down much more. It's a little bit indecisive. And then we continue to come down, but down in here, look what was happening. Well, they're starting to try to come get this thing, accumulation, this accumulation of this thing, excuse me, going from the 1 o'clock time frame Tuesday. And as we started to come down, and as this was coming down, we were coming to get it. And that's exactly what I did. And other people, they're starting to come to get it. And then we kind of waffled in here. What we really needed to do was break through 4-1. Had we broken through 4-1, 4-2 and started to go, folks would have started to come in because they were waiting to pull the trigger to get the confirmation that we were actually going to go up. Watch tomorrow. If we hit like 4-3, they're going to start to come in. They'll come in and start to get it. And it won't surprise me if we run up right to here, Angela, because here's an area where there was a lot of congestion and there's probably resistance in here. So if we run up tomorrow, chances are pretty good I'll probably sell it right around 5. Now, unless we just blow through 5 and there's news or there's something that kind of says, okay, all bets are off. Let's now hold because the situation has changed. There's new information, maybe, something really significant that really verifies that this is in fact the real deal, then I'd probably hold because I would want to get as much money as I could because the goal is to let your winners run.
Yeah.
So if we look at the 15-minute chart, we can see this 30-minute scenario in a half the time frame. So as we were starting to come down, it was trying to hang in there. Nope, still can't do it. Doji'd a couple here, can't do it. Came down. Let me make this bigger. And then we doji'd in here, right? Long wick. The wick is not as long here. Skinny body, making a higher low. And then, this downtrend action, of course, we're looking at different time frames. So it's a little different. And then the more of the pronounced one, literally you could be drawing these lines. Okay, we're going through it, higher lows, a little bit of a kick out, a channel in here. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to drop it. And then we double bottom, and this bottom. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to sell it. And all along, while this thing was waffling, histogram was also going up. So there's a bit of a bullish divergence that I spoke of earlier. This is going down, not by a lot, but it is going down, but this is going up. They're still coming to get it. This is telling you they're coming to get it. All of it's telling you they're coming to get it. And so if I were going to be a buyer and I was still uncertain, Angela, you just draw your daggone line. We're in a bit of a channel in here. And then once we got that big, long green candle and we pushed through it, we had a little bit of a volume spike. Volume did increase in here. Histogram was good. momentum. This particular indicator was gently rising. Relative strength right here started to rise. We were in the blue line territory, meaning, we're probably oversold. And then we crossed over here, and here's our look straight up right here as we started to head up as well. And then what do we get right here, Angela?
Another doji.
Another doji. And I was like, oh man, here we go. Right. We got to turn. We're not quite sure what we're doing. And we just very gently inched with higher highs. And then we kind of kicked out sideways. And then we're like, oh, we're going to go through it. And then we kicked out sideways. We got one more, oh, we're going to go through it, that I was hoping we would get to like 4.243, with an hour to go. And then I think we would have saw some buying. So from a trend line standpoint, we go back to, say, the hourly time frame so we can see it a bit better, because we were looking at, the wider one, the middle one, and the pronounced one. We need to get through. We need to do about 4.344 tomorrow. And if we do that, I think we probably won't have much of a problem getting to 5. And if we get to 5, I may sell. And then if we pull back, then I may rebuy. And so putting all of that together, because I feel very confident you know how to do this, you just haven't done enough of it. And your brain doesn't like take you to what I just did, to quickly
Well,
look.
my brain, I get it, but my brain isn't getting through all those layers in time for it to make a difference for me, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
And that is practice. It's quick practice processing what you're looking at, because everything that I've told you, I know you see it. You're like, yeah, I see that it's I see what we're doing. But when you're looking in the moment, lower time frame, the speed of the market, and you're drawing some lines and just stop, and we're right here. This is the hour you're in. You're thinking, am I going to buy anymore? Just in your brain, you're like, what is this thing telling me?
Well, I think another problem with me is in my mind, I'm thinking, am I holding this because I think it's gonna be a big investment, or am I going to day trade it? And I think in my mind, I haven't fully decided yet.
Okay.
That is like a tug of war in my mind going on, even though I'm seeing this stuff. I'm trying to decide, am I holding or am I going to day trade it?
Yes. And I had that problem all throughout my trading career, if you will. If I'm not clear on what it is I wish to do, then I start to run into a problem. Back in 2020, 2021, there were times where I just said, I'm going to hold. I'm going to hold. And then I end up holding, and then I don't like holding, right? And then I'm not where I need to be mentally, and I'm zigging when I should be zagging, and I'm like, but I want to hold. And I think that know what you want to do going in, ideally, and then stick to that plan. If because there's the unknown with this one, I do get it, because I'm like, I don't know if this is a hold or not. I usually don't hold anything, but I feel like I want to hold this because it could be 100 times your money, but I don't know. So in the interim, until I get some clarification, I would yield to just trading it until you have, or till something has started to make it clear to you before the train leaves the station, then trade it, but if you're like, oh, I think this is actually the real deal, then start to hold some. Whether you say, okay, I'm going to park 2,500, $5,000. I'm going to put that thing away and see if it actually goes. Because it could pay off the house or pay off whatever you're trying to pay off. So I get it. I really do get that. I get it. So if there's confusion, because I always say stocks is just a mental thing and processing and homework. If there's any confusion in how you're thinking and what you want to do, then it'll almost, analysis leads to paralysis. The deer standing in the daggone road in the forest on the road, and here comes the 18-wheeler, and it's like, I should move. You should move. It's going to hit you. And then it hits you. Right. That is where you're standing. You're standing in the middle of the road, like, Angela, get off the road. The 18-wheeler is going to hit you in a second. So thinking through that, so if we've talked about this earlier. It feels like barely that it is legitimate. And I didn't get a chance to dive in because, school and all the rest of the junk into that name, but maybe I do that after 8:30 or so before I call it a night. Questions on this stock?
No, I'm just praying that it's gonna at least get back up to where I can do something with it. Or go down far enough to where I can maybe buy some really low and get out at a lower price.
Mhm.
And probably gonna go that route. Just
Okay.
kind of see what tomorrow holds.
Right. Okay. No worries. Let's take a look at SPZI. Same scenario, reverse merger. Don't really care about this on the monthly. I only cared about it when now because it's new, when they had the shareholder letter and all explaining all the stuff that was happening. If you bought the breakout, we already know how this was in a channel, not as important. But if something was going on and it started to come out of, from a trading standpoint, out of this channel, yes, it was important once it starts to come out of it. We had GV, or good volume. Clearly the stock was starting to go up. It certainly closed 5% above the trend line, the resistance level. And so it met all of the criteria that we look for. So let me just clear drawing set. We've gone over this before. So simply drawing your trend lines is super, super easy. That one's a beautiful thing. And then, it was like, I don't know what we want to do. It's in the middle of all of this, high, low, it looks like a doji, just a little fatter. And then, we got up here and we opened higher. What was our open here? We opened at 1-1, which is here on the right corner. And then our high was 1-1, right? So we didn't go any higher from the open. Our low was 8-3 and our close is over here at 9-2 on this corner here. So that is a little bit of a pause, but the good news for this particular scenario is it just, you can either do what is the natural line, because I'm doing corner here and not wick. But if I did wick, it would just about be wick to wick. It would just about be the same line. But if I did corner to corner, like so, we would be breaking that trend line. And then the next support area down from a mid-range uptrend line, it held. And then this to me down here would be the screaming buy if we got down here around 6. So if we ever rolled over. But this company, I feel like, is the real deal. Unlike IGPK, that jury's still out. They've been naming board members,
Almost every day, it seems like there's a
yeah,
new.
yeah. And if it were a scam, they're going through a lot of work to scam me. And if they earn some money, I'm like, well, you did a good job because I bought into all the stuff you told me. They're putting in a lot of work for the scam if it was a scam. And I don't think it's a scam. I think they're above board. It's the real deal. And so if this thing ever gets to 6, I'm going to load the boat. If it somehow, whatever reason, rolls over, I don't think it will. I will load the boat. So that's on the weekly. Volume has been tapering off, just like anything with in the OTC realm. There's always a prettier girl or a shinier object, and folks will move their money quickly until it's time to get on board the money train whenever this thing actually starts to go again. So my point of kind of reference to make sure I'm back on board, which I'm already on board. I've got plenty of money in it. But if I, what I'm saying is the indicator to make sure you're on board is this closing high of 96. When we push through the week, greater than 105%, ideally, if we're looking at the weekly time frame, what are we like? 0.96 times 105% is 0.1008. So when we get back to this, pretty much this 0.11 with good volume, breaking this closing high all time sort of over the last so many weeks, that'll be the thing. So I've got an alert right here to alert me if we start to do that. And if we roll over, I've got an alert from here, the 7-9 range, if we break through this trend line, and I'm going to put one right here. So I don't forget, I'll put it just before the trend line to give myself some time to do whatever I need to do. So I'll say, let me know when the ask is at or below 6.4. And then I like to put myself a little note, and I shall put scream 6. So I can.
So on this one, I've got a pretty good little profit on this one. So you think that is this a good one to try to take some of the profit and get back in? Because I'm in,
They're gonna
lower
announce an acquisition in the next 2 days.
so maybe just stay with it then.
Yeah, because what if the acquisition is good? They said it was going to be this week. So I don't know what that is, buy the rumor, sell the news, but it's not like there's a whole lot of volume for buy the rumor, right? Of course, we're only 2 trading days in. Monday, we were off holiday. Folks are just kind of waiting. I think people are waiting on the sugar contract. They're waiting on the financials. This is, again, another stock. It's probably worth holding. Just set it and forget it. And this could be worth a chunk of change. Same thing with the IGPK. Some of strategies, what people do, Angela, is they have a chunk of change. Let's say they take $100,000 and they buy 10 of these names like these at $10,000 a piece, and they just set it and forget it. And if these things go up 10 times, well, there's $1 million. Because they find the ones that are like, this actually might work. They say, hold on, here's some money. Hold on, oh, I found another one. Here's some money. And even if they're right 7 times, say 7 times, they go up 10 times your money. And the other 3 just kind of stay flat, you're still making a lot of money. Just depends on how you want to approach the market and how much risk you want to take on. But like I would always say to you before, if you're new, the responsible thing for me to say to you would be, Angela, buy things like Tesla, IBM, NVIDIA, AMD, those sorts of things, Apple.
You have to have a lot of money to invest in those.
Yeah, it's better to have some money because the stock prices are so much higher. But the stocks that will pay you a lot of money are the ones that carry higher risk. And if you can get yourself to a place where you process information fast enough and you recognize business from BS.
Still having a problem with that one too.
Right, that's okay. And it slows down for you because, Angela, if you can do this SPZI, the rest of the stuff is hilariously slow and boring. The NVIDIAs of the world, like, oh my gosh, what a yawner. We can clearly see we would buy the thing right here. We were looking at. Case in point, so many people just don't know how to do it. My neighbor calls me, the 105 mark here. He's like, what do you think about it? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a screaming buy right here.
It's a double bottom.
Right? And the downtrend was in. Let's move this stuff, clear all this stuff out. Get out of this.
There's actually another double. Well, good Lord, I see 3 different double bottoms.
Right? Look at that. I mean, how much easier? It's boring, right? So you double bottomed in here. The volume was going up, and if you look at all the other factors to help you figure out where you would need to buy this thing, if we go a few weeks back, let's do right here, weekly, 2 years weekly. We were in this downtrend, kind of like that. then it was a little bit more pronounced in here, and then we were like flushing right here.
Mhm.
So when he called me, I said, Lewis, I would buy all you could buy right here, buddy, because he already had owned it. We bottomed, volume was coming in, and some of the other indicators were telling me, which are not on the screen, that this would be it. And if we come out of this little mini sort of curl here, and we're going to cross the downtrend that was more pronounced, you'd have been safe to buy it at 130, as people were coming in to get it. But he was asking me, and I was like, oh my gosh, right here at like 108, right? And it only went down a little bit more to 101 in this for the week. And then it turned, and then you doubled your money literally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks later, it hit almost 220. And where I was telling was to buy it was at 108. It just when I have a lot of money one day, I will participate in like some of this stuff, like they don't really, get me up in the morning. It doesn't really do it for me, right? But one day I was like, yeah, we'll just buy some of that stuff and it'll be pretty easy. And it'll be the safe place. It's a really easy, really, really easy place. And then clearly you can see, where resistance was going to be. It was going to be somewhere right in here. If you bought the 108 scenario, this was one of our markers, and then we spun up to here, and then we went right up to it, and we kind of almost printed a doji, longer wick, skinnier body. You're like, I don't know if I want to go through it because this would be the resistance area. This is the last time we made a nice little high and drawing that line across, and then we did a bit of a cup, bit of a hand on here if completed and it actually went up where you put your finger. So the ding ding, where would I buy this stock would be this marker here, 268. And I'll put an alert back in there because if it doesn't get to 268, I don't really have time for it. And this upward trend line in here, it touched it, it's skirting it, and it looks like it wants to go through it. And so I'm going to put an alert at 195. If we drop below there, where are we going? Problem with a lot of investors and stuff and people is they don't know where to buy it and they don't know where to sell it. So it's a bit of a problem for them. I'm like, well, what are you putting your money in there for? If you don't know where to buy it, you don't know where to sell it, right? You're just randomly buying it at certain price points, like you're buying a mutual fund. And it is what it is, and knowing what you know now, Ange, I'm telling you, you're probably better than more than half the people who even spend money out here because you understand what you're looking at, for the most part, right? And so you're looking at this scenario, we're in a gentle downtrend on Tesla, and we're just kind of doing this number. Yeah, we're not getting through it, dipping down. We're still not getting through it and dipping down. And right in here is a bit of where the bottom is. This particular mark, and this is exactly where I've marked it around the 195 range. And so if it falls below this 193 roughly range, chances are pretty good it's gonna fall 50 points. And if we make this bigger here and we do the distance training that I would tell you about, so if we look at this daily look on Tesla, and we see we're in this bit of a channel, and then we broke through the channel, and we hit our head on the overhead resistance that was already in up here, right? And then as we're making a bit of a shoulder and a head, and then I said if the shoulder on the right is smaller, it's going down. You see how this is more pronounced? It's a wider shoulder, and then the neckline in the head, and then the neckline, and then the shoulder only lasted 3 days, and it's going down. So it's going to fall. And all of those rules and stuff, they come out of all of these books. I'm telling you, I've done this so long. It's all true, and it all works. And because they've seen it, they've seen it a million times. So this fall, this 258 in here down to the where the shoulder area is towards the bottom of it's 232 roughly. So you got 258 to 232, 258 minus 232. If it broke that, it would drop $26. So 26 minus 232 is 206. And this stock touched the low is 212. So it hasn't hit 206. We'll see if it hangs in here at this bottom. But chances are really good it's going to hit 206. So it just is a distance thing. So learning these things will help you putting it all together to see stuff clearly. You're like, here's where I need to enter this. Big picture, weekly, daily. Okay, I see what we're doing. Technical indicators. I see what it's telling me. Now let me drill down into the minutia, if you will.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you pick the 258 mark for that? I understand what you did with the bottom, but what made you pick the 258?
So we were doing the what was it? The
distance, how far
yeah,
it was
yeah.
gonna.
Was it it's probably the was it the what
It
time
was down here on the day is what you did it on.
was it on the daily?
Yeah, you just did it on the daily, I think.
No, I think it was had to be the that's kind of weird. I think it would have to be the hourly. That's weird. Let me put the daily back up and see if I can find it. Oh, it was the daily, yeah. So
You were talking about the head and shoulders?
yeah, it's this one. So looking here, we had this gap, and then so this trading here is like it's an entity that stands by itself, that's joined into the rest of it. So when I'm looking at just this bit of trading, the channel, the bit of the shoulder here and the head, and then the shoulder here. The reason why I don't go to the very top. I just try to give myself some room. So you see it, we're roughly in this crack.
So just, okay.
I don't have a better word for it. Just in this crevice is roughly 250. I'm just rounding off down to the 232 range right in there.
Okay.
So, and that $26 drop puts you at 206. So it will not shock me if we come down to about 206, 205, because it's just the way it works. And so kind of knowing the rules, knowing this stuff will just help you trade better. And then when something happens, news could upset some of this flow, because clearly Tesla has news all the time. Like, look at all this news in here. Tesla. It's all day long. Tesla shows up in the news of some sort. But if they get um, any sort of, meaningful news, then it may upset this flow, because, whatever happened yesterday, news-wise, it kind of stopped some of this downward momentum. And you've got a bit of a bullish engulfing. This distance of this length of the candle engulfs all of this one. I can put this one into this one. And then we double bottom here with a nice little hammer. And if I'm looking at kind of drawing a trend line down, it's about, something right around this line here. And then, we double bottom. So, within the daily, I wouldn't look to buy Tesla until we break through this downward trend. And, are we going to hold this bottom here? So I'd probably, put an alert below this 212. And then tomorrow is a pee or get off the pot sort of scenario with this downward trend, because the next candle fits right there, right in there. And so then the very next day, Friday, look, you're going to pee or get off the pot. You're either going down or you're going to start to break this downward action. And sticking with those just simple fundamentals, we're going to jump off here in 3 minutes, is what will make you money. It's really not that hard. The challenge is when you just don't know, and there's a bunch of moving parts, and the stock is moving fast, and that's where you get the challenge intellectually. How fast can you process information to arrive at the right decision to do blank? And then you feel good. You're like, I'm processing pretty fast. All the stuff that's going on. Boom, here's what we need to do. And if you're wrong, that's why we have tight stops. That's why we have a stop, So what we should have done, definitely you should have done in a perfect world, is if you bought IGPK, you already know what I'm going to tell you, IGPK, and we bought that sucker up in
It's on the 16th.
Yeah, you bought this thing.
I did open.
Huh?
I bought it right at the open on the
Yeah,
6th.
I did too at 5.3. But if you bought it and you saw all this waffling, you could be like, you know what? If we're at 5, 6, 5, 7, I don't know what's going on. I'm either going to take the money or I'm going to put once I'm above 5.3, 5.4, just some sort of money, Olive Garden money for you and Joey,
Mhm.
I'm going to put a daggone stop in at 5.5, 5.6. And if it sells, whatever. Getting out on make 5. I don't even know what that would be. Make 2, 3%. What is that? 0.053, 0.056. That's 0.003 divided by 0.053 where we bought it. Yeah, 6% on your money. You're like, whatever. I spent $1,000. Maybe spent $250, $500, and I made 6%. It's $30. It does buy 2 very inexpensive meals at Olive Garden, but no wine or anything, no beer, just the meal.
That's okay.
Just the meal. Does that make sense? So we've got the next stock you buy. If IGPK pulls back, Angela, wait for if this thing comes back and hits like 3.2, wait for 2.7. It's probably gonna drop below 3 because it's gonna scare the crap out of people. And I don't know if I'm you, given if I'm gonna spend whatever. Let me stop recording. Hold on 1 second.